who's that knocking on my door from Tucson?
How you doing, boss?
I'm doing great, man.
It's good. It's
Uh,
great.
are you?
We're gonna have a cathartic hang right now. So let's just get in the groove. All right.
All right,
You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Inside the Paris Sea Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live shows, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And after an amazing experience back east at the staying at the Getz residence in Irvington, New York, and what is turning into going to be a pretty complex documentary on Stan Getz. It's great to be back in the saddle here at Power Talk, and on a trip right before that, I had a chance to catch a hang with Cindy Blackman and see Carlos Santana at the House of Blues, but I called up Robert Caston, and we were sitting inside Mandalay Bay, and I was like, hey, man, I'm like, I got to talk to any of the peeps that you still connect with from the days of authenticity in music when it was less formulaic and much less predictable, whether it's Malo or Naked Lunch. And he said, well, the one cat, he mentioned a few guys, but the first cat who was most accessible was my next guest. God bless the child, Richard Spremich. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, Jake. Yes, God bless you also, and thanks for having me.
It's great to connect with you. I kind of wanted to ask you about in today, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but there's something about the spirituality of the way the spirituality, or you use spirituality, and the bands would use it to channel the music to raise the collective consciousness of the music, whereas today, especially in Christian rock, for instance, it's much more. There's it's just very transparent. There's not a lot of mysticism, and I'm searching for the word right now, but it's just, I just wonder how much
about creativity?
Yeah. So if you could talk about how you connected, because you've seen the white horse come through. These things have shown up over and over in your existence, and a lot of it came from this transcendent music that you guys were playing when you first started your career. So not so much a critique of today, but more about how you channeled spirituality in those bands, and how that raised the collective consciousness of the audience as opposed to alienating people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if I could break it down into two categories, and back in when we all met as kids, most of us were, people have to be reminded that the original Malo band consisted of 3 players from Naked Lunch, and then 4 players from the Malabus, and Bill Grant is the one who came up with the name Malo. And when we got together, except for Arcilio, I believe, all of us were 17, 18. I know Abel was 16 when it started. I was 17. And then by the time the Malo album was put out, we were 17, 18. So everybody was pretty young, but they could all play. And that was back in the day when I get interviewed more on the Christian format, I say for Christian music, it's time to let the creator start moving through his created. So back in those days, and I'm not here to say, to me, anybody who is spiritual that actually follows what the person that they're studying does, most of them lead with peace and et cetera, but we don't have that a lot. But I would say now marketing has destroyed it. I was in a conversation constantly on the West Coast here with those who want to rewrite history, Jake, and the rewriting is it.
Wow.
Malo was a band it had nothing to do with the rock side. Richard, you were, and this is what I'm told by people who, the 300 original members that run around here. It's really interesting. That one told me, well, I don't tell people I'm not an original member, but if they don't, I don't correct them either. So I said, listen, so this is what happened. You had kids that got together that were pretty gifted, and our spirituality came out during the music. You know, this is way before the drugs got involved. We were all basically potheads back in the early days. And man, we would love to play and just create on a band format. And what that looked like was, and sounded like, if you see a picture, we're doing Suavecito, right? Roy Murray comes in. I just spoke to Roy Murray, the trumpet player. He's out in North Carolina or something doing well. But he was one of the older guys,
Sure.
Too, of the seven. But he came in and he just went, hey, how about this? Ba-da-da-da, you know, whatever that beginning trumpet line is. Well, man, that's been hijacked by another famous trumpet player on his website. So then Abel came in and did the little woo-woo, you know, the whistle. I came in with playing it. I was 13 when I switched from trumpet to drums, but I'm part Latin, so I had that kind of clave feel on the rim. Every other drummer that plays that now plays it on with a snare beat. So instead of I never, and man, if you hear my one of my new songs, I mean, I'm not trying to self-promote here, but I love pocket grooves, especially slower ones that just doom doom, you know, war, all day music, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we all put the songs together, and that doesn't happen anymore. It's marketing. It's driven by marketing, and that's what's killing everybody. They've come into the consciousness of everybody's minds, and the marketing people are saying, I see it at church, I see it all over. Well, Jay-Z or PZ or whoever the Z or the flavor of the month is, they're doing it this way, and we better do it that way. And you know what happened? I told my group the other day, because we're on the cusp, I said, we're letting the creator move through his created, and that's what I think it is, and I'll stop at that. On whatever level you're at, it doesn't get to that point. There's so much compromising, and
Could you give any? Could you? I mean, this is so important. This is first of all, the word I was searching for with as it relates to Christian music today is it's all devotional. It's very devotional music, and I. But what does this mean? This creator and the created. This is absolutely at the apex of. If we're, I mean, some would say that we would need a complete cultural and civilization breakdown in order to grow the vocabulary of music. But what are you really? Can you give a tangible example of the compromising that exists? And what that you said that phrase.
So in other words, yes, and when I write music, I don't play a chordal instrument. And when I got hurt years ago and I started on this journey that was a spiritual journey for me, and I was told, I felt through my relationship to start an original band writing original music. I never wrote a song in my life. And the first album I put out, man, it stunk to high time. But when I write music, what happens is I sit down and a new song I just finished comes up with a groove like this. It just goes, one ba 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 da, da 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 da. Well, through my creativity, when I went to have this horn line put down, the guy who was helping me wanted to make it on the beat. Ba 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 da, and I said, no. I want it on the upbeat. One ba 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 da, ba do ba di ba ba. And he said, but Rich, no one does it like that. That's what I'm talking.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's so amazing. At 39, I'm like, okay, so now we're compromising everything based on because Rich, nobody does it that way. When my first interview with Garibaldi, he openly said that if anybody came up to him after a show and said, "Hey, you sounded just like Richard Spremich," he'd want to slit his wrists. Or somebody, it was it was the opposite of that. And when you start creating this, not just predictable formulaic stuff, but with all the technology, it leads. I think that I don't want to get overly dramatic, but it's not. I mean, I don't want another Hitler. I don't want another Hitler. That's why I'm doing my show.
No.
Okay. And when you
Yes.
create droids or people that have this idea of saying it's not going to sell, man, or it's about the it's about the money as opposed to what feels good. I'm not trying to be Pollyannish, but that's when you're trying to copy anybody else and just be like the other person. That spells danger for any kind of civilization, let alone vocabulary and music.
Well, it does, and you're talking about, and I write this stuff down, devotional music. I would rather hear someone sold out. They tell me Jesus, whatever, but don't tell me that there's some mystical friend of mine if you're in Christian music, because a marketing guy said in Christian music, if you mention Jesus, I mean, I built 2 companies where I got hurt years ago, so I put this one together. Although it's a band/ministry, I know how to build companies. And to me, radio is just advertising and promotion. And I've said this time and time again. I've talked to the VP of operations of programming for all the major Christian formatted companies, and this is what they say. We have to keep up with the world. Well, no, you don't. We have to do what sells. And what sells is, now a good friend of mine who is very, very well known in the Christian music, they don't even let him pick the key anymore. And I'm going, stomp on that stuff, put it to death. It's a fraud. You're not closing your eye. I don't care if it's Buddha, if you get where I'm going. I don't care what it is. It's not pure, because some marketing guy is saying, Jake, if you get controversial on your radio, you start saying this, man, people are going to listen in. But you're going, no, man, I have I feel a purpose.
Yep.
And I'm going to be led by that. And guess what? It's just a matter of time, because I had a guy tell me at a powerful radio station in St. Louis, he said, Richard, I love your song Tremble. Well, I put a Samba Batiste type double time at the end of this music with a bounce, quote unquote, Christian song. Man, Richard, it's no one wants to hear the piano, and this kid reminds me of Richard Kermode, but with his own creativity. It's just beautiful. He said, well, no one's going to listen to it. I use my sales, hey, man, you know what I mean? Do a brother a favor. He said, okay, I'll put it on a number 156. I said, man, that's going to get a play every 4 or 5 days. Well, within 2 weeks, this is 4 years ago, that song shot to the top, into the top 10 for that radio station. So that just dispels it. But you're right. When the creative ideas, see, we just anyway. This is a passion of mine.
No, I know. No, I this is and again, I am on my sponsors, the people who support my show and help me make a living here in Tucson. Even though it's a worldwide streaming radio station, we're not hardwired into cars. They all are divine beings because they recognize my talent, they recognize my creativity, they recognize what I'm doing on new media, and most importantly, it's not there's no formula to it. It's just pure and unadulterated into the light, always looking towards the light, which is why I've connected with your generation of musicians. I mean, you guys could basically be my uncles or my father. But there is something going on now where it's a manipulation on all levels, at the political level, and the musical level. There's and so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think I do like how you are channeling, or how I think that it's how you can make something so generic and strip all the soul out of it. And I guess the most concerning thing for me is the fact that people's ears are not just becoming accustomed to it, but they actually like it. It's like, what? Are you serious? Because you listen to this stuff. I mean, it's not dance. It's not danceable. And there really are no messages, and everything's just sort of, we just need to put it into that factory and make as much money as possible. And if you do anything that feels good, that may not be quote unquote in the mainstream, it's not going to get, it's not going to get in there. So, I mean, it can be a lonely avenue sometimes, but at the same time, always looking into the light. I wanted to ask you,
Well, let me, if I could, Jake.
Go ahead.
The until, and I always tell my daughters, I got 6 of them. I say, you know, when a young man comes calling, he tells you what you can do. Where has he gone? What is he doing? And what's his plan for the future? So until, I've said this time and time again, Latin music took off when Santana finally Santana finally broke through. Then all the rest came. So the time is coming, I believe, to where one band's going to break through, and because they start making money off of that band and quit being afraid, that they're going to start going after other creative bands. And that's just what I believe is true, because marketing is stifling everybody. They're losing listenership on the Christian side. I said, wouldn't it be just like God to bring a guy like Rich, who you say is too old, too ugly, plays eclectic music? I had to look up what that meant, because I said, and yes, I write all styles, but how I write is that I sing into a tape recorder. That's how it starts. And then I double that track. I'll put the drums, and 80% of what I put down, unless a musician can, I always say we go to the studio. I'm about to here in about a month or so do another project. I say, give it back better than I gave it to you. So I leave the door wide open. Man, if you're thinking new and you're thinking, but I don't want to hear stuff you did 5 years ago. See, Jake's best and my best, and whoever 10 years old to 80, if you're a creative person, your best is going on in your mind right now, and it's going to get out tomorrow or the next time you play. So,
well, talking to Richard,
I don't want to be.
No, I mean it's spot on. I was hoping you could talk about how did Bill Graham come up with that name Malo?
I don't know. All I know is that one day someone said, "Hey, here comes some of the bad ones," or something like that, and it evolved out of him. Just to be clear,
Bill Graham was the businessman of that Bay Area scene, and here he is, also being a talent scout. I mean, he obviously knew. I guess what I'm saying is, how much did Carlos play a role in getting that your band started, or was it just a complete sort of irony because you were playing down in the Haight-Ashbury and he noticed you? How did it even get to a point where you guys were able to make those timeless records?
Well, Bill Graham loved all music, and he's the one, I think, who managed Carlos in the beginning, Carlos's band. So now Warner Brothers comes out. Abel Zarate, I guess the word got out when Naked Lunch. You know, people don't give that band credit. And when I get attacked for, oh, you had nothing to do, whatever people say, I always say, you know what? If Abel Zarate, Roy Murray, and I weren't a factor in creating the sound, I didn't write any of those songs, then why did it bomb after we all left? So we had that band Naked Lunch. And if you go and listen to a couple songs like Ozone and the one that you were playing, that's the sound.
Burning. I mean, but
yeah. So Bill Graham turns us on to Dave Rubinson, because they were in the same offices there on Market Street, and Roy Murray was handling the. He might be someone you want to talk to someday too. He was the adult in the room, he didn't smoke, he didn't do anything, and he was just out there as a creative guy, as you could tell by those Naked Lunch horn line. But so anyway, Warner Brothers came up to see Naked Lunch as the story goes, when we played a benefit concert for about 2,500 people. This was in '71, I think. And we played with Tower Power, we played with Boss Gags, we played with all the bands, about 4 or 5 bands of that day. It's a Beautiful Day and stuff. And we came out, cocky little guys, and we were the only band that got called back twice. And man, we thought we were so full of ourselves. Well, we started fighting among ourselves. And I guess that got back to Warner Brothers, who was in the audience, and they wanted to sign us, but they said, you know what? We're going to go to, we have a connection with Dave Rubinson through Bill Graham, who loves Latin rock bands. there's this band in Malibu's where they have a good lead singer, because Abel was a singer-guitar player, but his voice, was used to crack a lot, I guess they say. So then they had the idea to merge. Abel, you may want to talk to him someday. Abel did not sit down and write any of those songs, but he arranged them all. And it's sad that he doesn't. We used to get interviewed, Jake, on when we went on our first tour. We blew him away at Carnegie Hall, etc. And they would say, "Hey, George, nice solo." And oh no, that was Abel. Abel arranged.
Wow.
Never Will I Say Goodbye. No, a piece.
Yeah.
The whole guitar thing. That was Abel. That just not even 17, 18, turning 18. So that's how it all got started. And it doesn't hurt to jump off with a big hit single that we brought more of at that point the jazz size. And here's a tidbit. Once Carlos heard the double guitar thing, that's when Neil, we heard he was taking a look at Neil during that time, so it kind of drove him to try it too. And
this is interesting. Did I thought Neil immediately never wound up in Santana, but was with Journey. But did he wind up with Santana, or did he just wind up doing the double guitar thing from that?
No, I think. I forget. We're going back 40-something years.
Yeah, again, this is about promotion of how. Listen, we just talked about how formulaic and how scared these record companies are now to do anything, and we're going back to a time. I mean, I've interviewed Fred Catero, I've interviewed David Rubinson twice. Bill Graham left us.
Wow, is Fred Catero still alive?
Oh, dude, he's cooking the groove, man. I mean, and what I'm saying is, the warmness of those albums made those albums. I mean, obviously the arrangements were spectacular, but Catero was a badass. All I'm saying is, you guys went from anyway. So Carlos was interested. The two guitar sound in Latin rock was something that Malo put on the board. Is that accurate?
That as far as I can remember, I don't know if they were the first, but we were the first that actually got airplay. You never know what's going on around you that doesn't get heard. But from what I understand, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I dig.
Yeah. Radio people tell me I was talking to Vance Dillard from Salem Music, and we were getting into it about, man, just give us a chance. I got sonic quality. I worked with a Grammy Award-winning producer, but it's like, man, if you just took away that jazz opening on that song, they say, Rich, is it all about your music? He says, you're not the only guy out there. So I told him this. I said, yeah, but who else have you talked to, Mr. Senior VP? See, from my business background, I know how to get these guys on the phone. But Neil came in, and I didn't know him very well, but I got to say, it must be pre-Journey, because he was pretty young too, and he came out of that San Mateo, California area where Tom Poole all knew each other, and gosh, I could rattle off a couple of the other guys' names, but pretty famous too. So anyway, so that's how it got started, and we'd still be going strong today if it wasn't for the political moves. All I really, one of the reasons why I came on to talk to you today is that just to set the record straight, man. Go back. I've got new things. I don't go do the tributes and all those just because I can't stand.
Oh, it's a train. You're doing it. You're doing it. Can you just talk to the audience about this? It was the Moo House or the Who House. There was a house in Haight-Ashbury where you guys used to. Can you talk about that place?
Yes.
And I mean, this is really what I'm saying is that not just San Francisco, but so many. When there was regional radio and before full interconnection, the music came out of the communities. And so I want you to talk about this house. I've never heard of the house, and I wanted you to stretch that out and how it lent itself to that communal feel. Yeah.
It was called the Children of the Moo.
The Children of the Moo.
I
mean, you can't make this stuff. It's just epic. Continue.
No. Hey, well, Lucky no one offered me some Kool-Aid, bada bing.
Yeah, right. Wait, who offered you the Kool-Aid? Who was it? Owsley? Who offered you the?
No. I said lucky no one did.
Oh, lucky no
Children
one.
of the
Okay,
Moon.
okay, yeah. You might have gone off somewhere else, but
No.
yeah.
Yeah, Jonestown or something, but I don't know. but anyway, yeah, I was still man. I'll share with you. I think I have some pictures from those days. That's where Naked Lunch got together. It was a hippie commune. Fifth Stevens, who was the organ player, gosh, he's still out there.
I need to get to all these cats, man. This is unbelievable. Sorry, continue. I don't want to keep cutting you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. It was a gathering point where you went to smoke weed. It wasn't hard drugs at that time. No one got into that stuff until the older guys started coming into the band, the sidemen from Malo. And I know my mom said, "Oh, someone's going to chase you down and kill you for saying that sometime." I said, "Well, you know what? It's just the truth. We're all potheads from the children, rehearsing there. I was still wearing what were those jeans?
The bell bottoms.
Yeah, bell bottoms.
I'm surprised you didn't have a. I'm surprised you didn't have a dashiki on.
Well, Roy did. Roy was living in his car.
Wow.
We started off working there, practicing there with Naked Lunch. Abel, we would all come in there and play, and they were a commune. And they had a band, and I think it was called Children of the Moo. And then we separated when we played with Creedence Clearwater Revival. And we got accepted with all these little young, you got to remember, out of the 7 men, we were all still in diapers, so life was pretty good for us. You couldn't tell us nothing because we could play better than you could, and we knew it.
Yeah, and that's another thing that at that time, the way the contracts were structured, well, at least on Fantasy, Creedence Clearwater hit it big, but they didn't get, today all the money goes directly to one source. But at that time, that hit record funneled so much incredible. It did not a great fallout for Creedence Clearwater, but in some ways, the music was able to breathe because there was so much excess money to be able to cover Jazz Cats. I just remember talking to George Duke in Fantasy Studios, and you could walk in there and Cannonball Adderley was in the lunchroom, or Merle Saunders, or it was just this. There was just a lot of it. Anyway, so it was the Children of the Moo.
Children of the Moo, and not only that, but back in those days, you were coddled. You'd sit down, man, and those guys would let you. Carlos, I remember visiting Carlos. We're both born in July. We used to spend a lot of time over there. But the one thing Creedence did, to give them credit, they didn't say, "Hey, man, we have this 7-piece band," that when we play concerts, a lot of times we'd be the only ones who got the true encores. Most bands, the equipment manager, if it's the applause is fading out, he'll start stoking them up. So, but they gave us the opportunity to play at those venues, which was its exposure, and that was at the Fillmore. So there's probably a couple thousand people there, and then we returned there for the final days. Here's a tidbit. You maybe next time, not this time.
Well, I'm all about the tidbits, so go ahead.
Yeah, the Live at Fillmore album, our cut was not live. We recorded it in the studio with applause and everything else. So
wow. So you mean the closing the closing of the Fillmore? Is that what you're talking about?
The closing of the Fillmore, Malo's live performance.
Are you kidding? That's okay, because I love the another great band that Naked Lunch and Malo was right up with was the Sons of Champlin, and that track, Papa Don't Dance or something like that. My buddy Bill Vitt was playing drums for them at that time. But so you're saying that was a studio track? I also want to be clear. You guys, obviously Reefer was there, but LSD was also there. LSD was in the mix in the late '60s. Maybe not coke and heroin so much, but acid was there.
Yeah, I kind of had my a little bit tidbit, and then when I met the older guys sitting down there, and boy, you talk about expanding your mind. I remember Richard Kermode, who was like a big brother to all of us. He was so ineffective. The guy who played with Flora Prime and also
Absolutely.
Janis Joplin's
Absolutely.
band.
Yeah.
Yeah. He, I remember one night, and I'm saying this, Mom, I gave this stuff up last year, just kidding, over 30 years ago. No, 40, in my teens. But it was that one psilocybin thing over the line. And I remember when he sat me down, he said, man, I'm going to take you on a trip. And all I know, I sat there for 4 hours, man, and he just played. He was under the influence too. But we survived it, and maybe, I don't know, on some level that helps expand, although you don't want to go there. I was wondering if I was going to come back to Earth. But taking it full circle to the creativity side, now what I do, I'm a sieve for learning. I listen to all kinds of music, and I just figured that, like one of the radio guys said when they reviewed one of the songs, he said Richard's band are a throwback to the time, like when you said, when you would write a song, have a hook, and then let the players play. And that's what's missing from today's music. So I believe if you put the right funk groove down, and one of my songs has kind of a Don Ellis 7 vibe in the beginning.
Sure.
7/8 rock vibe. Ding, chaka, ding, chaka, ding, chaka, ding. And man, if you don't complicate them up where the average person can semi-follow them, you get the middle of the road musician. It's when you make them so complicated that you can't put your foot down. So that's what I appreciate about what you're doing. All that stuff in the past is great, and it all led everybody to where they are now. But I truly believe, like I said, my best day is the next time. I was practicing before you got here. I'll learn. My teacher, George Marsh, told me, he said, Rich, never be afraid to learn from anybody. As he asked me this bass drum, I always play with my foot on toe on the back of the pedal and not heel toe. And he's asked me, he said, how'd you do that? And I said, man, George, you're a great player. He said, no, someone will know something more than me because I'm not them. And that's kind of the spiritual thing too.
Well, wait, I cannot. Wait, hold on. Did you talk to Marsh before this interview?
No.
I mean, I've been on this trip for 6 years. Like I said, I was born in 78. I'm not vicariously living through my past. George Marsh has been a conduit to enlightenment for Jake Feinberg. I can't believe. And I want you to talk about this. Mike Clark talked about going in 67 to the Pierce Street Annex to see Marsh and Zeitlin and Mel Graves, and they were doing some really elastic art, rock, jazz. I mean, when did you connect with Marsh?
I was self-taught, and then when I started, when the breakup, and maybe it's for another time.
No, we're all over the place. There's no linear.
Malo.
This is not a linear thing. This is why I can do my show. So go ahead, just riff wherever you want to go.
Okay. Well, Malo goes on tour. The album hits. Infighting, we added the older guys in the band as sidemen. Now we're starting to play, and a few people in the band are getting more noticed by the female population, by young girls. Well, we were all young. I mean, and Richard Bean was one of them. We weren't bad look. This is before Raul Rical. He was an original member. Leo was an original member. Rich Bean was the lead singer on Suavecito. Well, now Arcilio is the couple of the older guys are getting mad because we have a couple of matinee idols, we'll call them. So next thing you know, they let go of Rich, and then Leo comes in, and the band starts to break up. So coming out of that, we all made a stand, and here's another tidbit. We said, Abel Zarate, we all did. Leo comes in, then we said, you know what, we're not making any more changes. Let's all quit, and then we'll force them to stop making these changes. Oh, by the way, during this time, Rich signed this contract for business reasons we have to incorporate. Oh, great. We all signed it. Well, guess what? 4 of the guys were part of the corporation. The rest of us were just kicked to the curb. But so having said that,
this is the reality of the. Yeah. Okay, continue.
the reality of music. So now,
Yeah, it's the school. It's
legally,
the
they
school
get
of
to
hard.
make
It's
all
the
this.
school of hard knocks. But yeah, this is
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, having said that, I own all the rights to everything I do now, man. I'm a businessman. I own all of it. I don't share any of it. I write, but anyway. So,
Let's go back to Marsh. So how did Marsh come in? Because I mean, Marsh and I have done.
Marsh comes in. The band breaks up. Now I got a band called Visions together with Frank Martin, Dave Dunaway, Tom Poole, Bob Oliveira, and we start practicing. And my brother says to me, he says, "Hey, man," he says, "those guys are so good. You're going to get kicked out of your own band pretty soon." So I sought out the best teacher. Frank Martin said, "Hey," who introduced me to odd meters and stuff. He said, "There's this guy, George Marsh, at Drumland." That's how I met George Marsh. I went down there and studied with him for about 6 months and I mean, Jake, this is back in the day when you wanted to take a Tony Williams riff, you had to get your LP, put it on the lowest speed, and hold your finger to get it to go. He's going, well, how's he doing it? You know, now they have programs where you can just slow that sucker down and you can hear, which people don't realize, but that's a tremendous help, a roadmap to how someone's playing something or the technique they're using. So that's how I met George, and I went to hear him play, and it's interesting. You're saying names that he used to talk about those other two guys. They were a trio, right?
Well, I mean, they were Mel Graves, rest in peace. Never had a chance. He died, but I'm telling you, the with Denny and Mel and what Mike Clark went to go see them. He was playing with Giraldi at the time, and he just said that it was mind expanding what they were doing at the Pierce Street Annex. That was '67, and by the '70s, Marsh eventually went into a band that maybe, you know, I mean, it was Dunaway was in there, Andy Narell, Mel Martin. It was called Listen, and that was the band that they. But he was teaching at Drum World, Drumland, and I mean, if there was something, because this is going to bring a smile, this is going to make him feel so good. I mean, you talked so articulately about what he told you before, that there'll always be somebody else that knows more or different. But you know, on the kit, from an inner drumming perspective, from a feel perspective, what did George Marsh help you learn about your own tech, you know, just feel and inner time feel more than anything else? What could you say was the legacy of that 6 months?
Yeah. First of all, it would be, I had a technique with my bass drum that, and this is back on the old school pedals, that he didn't try to change. He didn't play like that,
right?
But he didn't try to change it because my bass drum was already, still is heavy and quick. But what he did was he taught me how playing with correct technique. I was getting to be, have you ever seen guitar players, if you watch them play and you can tell when things start getting really fast and they start stumbling, they start turning their wrist in and tightening up, and that's a guitar technique. Well, I was doing the same thing, and a lot of drummers do with drums. A guy like Alex Acuna, who I met, he has perfect technique. Well, this, you know, over the years when I got hurt 10 years ago and I had an issue with maybe not walking or playing, I studied a lot, and I noticed all the great drummers now all have great technique. Well, George knew that back then, so that when you do a single stroke roll, I posted a Buddy Rich thing on my Facebook, and I saw him when I was 15 at Basin Street West. I've been working on this wind roll for 40-something years, and I finally get it, man. And it's because my technique, even though I'm getting older, I keep paying attention and learning and trying to grow. Well, he just told me, he said, you know what? You're never going to be able, you're going to sacrifice technique and quality for speed, and then your speed is only going to take you so far before you break down. And right after that, I started having wrist troubles and couldn't play for a year.
Wow.
So he told me how to just get back to the rudiments, how to use the fingers. And you know who modern day is real good at that is the Steve Smiths, the Dave Weckels. I mean, those guys just got perfect technique. So the rest of us are attaining. And when you have perfect technique, you can build your your chops to a point that now at this point in my life, what goes through my mind is able to transfer into my body almost real time. You know what I mean? I can almost do. I'm still attaining to it what I want to do and what vibe I want to bring. Because one of my strengths is, man, I can funk down. You'll swear I came out of. I can Garibaldi, not as good as him, but I can straight funk. I can Latin rock, and you'll think I can Latin jazz, and I can make all those. I can play swing. I can play Bavarian polkas like the guy in the mountains. And what I tell my students and anybody, just be a musician, learn, never stop learning, and you're able to transfer what you're thinking into physical. Man, what a feeling that is when that creativity comes in. So that's what George Marsh taught me.
That's beautiful. Did you get a chance to go down to the On Broadway in Jack London Square? There was like these bands like the Reality Sandwich and Group Therapy. I mean, that's where Tower of Power. I'm just trying to figure out, there was so many. I mean, Harvey Hughes and Garibaldi used to go back and spend all day in one of theirs apartment and just play games with each other. Like they'd work on rhythm games and just work out these crazy grooves. But it was all just, I mean, did you get over to Oakland, even maybe outside of Naked Lunch or Malo, just to get into some of these jam sessions with, Gaylord Birch, George Marsh, Mike, I'm not even doing justice to him, Mike Clark, Dean Chapralease, there's so many cats. I mean, I vetted this whole region. I mean, how much did you learn from not just, I think a lot of cats today, the biggest problem is that they don't go back far enough in the music, but also they don't have the experiential learning to develop their own individual sound, which is why you can't tell who anybody is anymore. And I just wanted you to talk.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to go over and stretch out and learn from cats like Gaylord and Garibaldi or anybody out there?
From Dave Garibaldi was one of the nicest guy in Malo when they first started their first tour. Tower Power was a Warner Brothers act.
Sure.
So we used to actually play a lot of gigs together. And I used to hang out with, I'll talk about Dave, but I won't mention the other ones. Dave would show me things. In fact, the things he showed me playing 16th notes over the top with 8 notes between paradiddle, right? I would pick those up, and he would keep showing me the other drummers because I was a kid, man. I was just turning 18 and going into 19. But the other ones, I would learn so fast that they would stop showing me. And it's kind of a thing with drummers a little bit. But Dave was the nicest guy back then, and I hear he's the nicest guy now. Now, what I did, I hung out with Victor Pontoa, Marcus Malone. I was more developing.
I cannot believe that what were you? Tell me about their teaching style, because was it just tell me about that. You just name dropped Marcus Malone, who was the earliest percussionist, or one of them in the Santana band, and then
he brought in Jingo Ba. Yeah,
he brought in who?
He brought in the song. It was his. He's the one who came up with. It was his idea to bring in Jingo Ba.
Wow.
Marcus was a great guy. And Marcus told me this, and then Victor told me this. And this is what I tell my students also. I'll tell anybody this. And B.B. King said this. B.B. King, after we left Children of the Moon, we started working at Fist, who was Ludwig's apartment there on Baker Street. B.B. King came down one time and visited the Naked Lunch Band. And he said, well, anyway, getting back to...
No, we'll just finish that. But first of all, what was the name of the place you were at? Baker? What was the name of the building?
It was on Baker Street, right about 4 blocks from the Children of the Moon. They kicked us out because our band was getting more popular, and they were the older guys from practicing at the Children of the Moon. That's where we used to leave the drums, B3. And they had musicians coming in and out of that place. It's a Beautiful Day came in, a lot of the bands. I wasn't into the rock and roll type ones, but I remember bands, but I remember those names. But Victor said this. He said, Marcus first. He said, Rich, question answer. Because I was going, man, I want to learn this Latin rock thing more. And he said, well, the problem is don't hit them with a lot of notes. You can play really fast, but you'll just get boring. Question answer. So I said, Marcus, and he had these tuned drums. I said, what's the question? He went, "Ku-ku-ku-ku," on the one drum, his conga. Then I said, what's the answer? Tatu pratu, tatu pratu. And then I've taken that my whole life. Now, B.B. King said, always let it breathe. And I said, so do you always just play not a lot of notes? And he said, well, that's my style, son. He said, but you play to the song. So when people tell me in my own band, which I let the players play, they'll say, oh, man, my dad would say he's overplaying or he's overplaying. I said, you know what? We need to play to the song. Songs need shredding. You know what I mean? At certain points. Other points in one of my songs, I just told the guys, hey, it's like a river. It's like a river. That's that song, Tremble. I'll send you over a couple copies of these. But there's a beautiful flugelhorn solo and piano solo. And when you're listening to it, I told the guys, no, not a lot of notes. And they didn't play a lot of notes. But in another song, you need a lot. So those guys would just say, hey, question answer. The question could be not 2 beats. It could be oh man, I'm listening to myself. If my wife were here, she'd be laughing.
No, I mean, you're having a ball. This is fantastic. No, I mean, so it was like the idea. Marcus was basically saying, and then Pantoja. I mean, Paul Jackson from the Headhunters used to go on these Cesar Escarones. You probably knew that cat. They're going around in a ship around Marin Harbor or whatever. And I mean, Paul Jackson gave Victor Pantoja all the credit for teaching him time feel. And it seemed to me that they were more about say what you need to say, the question, and then respond with the answer. But stop muddling it up with just a propensity of just flailing around with too much language, because too much language, that's really where we're at now, is just this idea that people are petrified of feel or silence, which is music, as opposed to just showing huge dexterity and facility right now. But is that what they were basically getting, the message they were telling you?
Yeah, because then it doesn't. Then drums, and I'm talking about drums. It could be anything. Stops being a melodic instrument because you're dealing with tones.
You're
right?
You're nailing it.
So,
you're nailing it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're dealing with tones, and I believe by my faith, I believe that God is in the words and He's in the wind. A lot of cultures think that He's in the words and He's in the wind. Well, when we're playing instrument. When I'm playing drums, I'm moving sound. I'm in the wind, right? So and they would say that's the way you keep an audience. Now George Marsh would say, "Hey man, I'm just in it for put it this way. My first lesson with him, he said, we're going to play a game. And I said, what game? He said, we're going to play reacting off of sound. And I'm like, you mean you're not going to get high first? I mean, I'm just being real.
No, I did.
No. He says, no, I don't do that. I said, okay. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden he goes, and all he had was a 3-piece, man. I mean, top tom 4-piece. And all of a sudden it's, and I said, what the heck are you doing? He said, listen to the clock. It's going, and he's going, I mean, just stop and then something else, man. He heard a bird or so that's the commitment to the consciousness of creating that we're talking about, and that's what I love to do, man. It's so much a part of and I like to encourage other people to do it. And again, I believe, Jake, that once there's a breakthrough, that's why when I run into people that I can help, I know a lot of people, it's just exposure. That's all it is. La. Next thing you know, Santana, Malo, War, everybody started coming down, and that's going to happen again. I truly believe that. Once the corporate world sees, because it is the music business. I heard your interview with Greg Raleigh, and it is the music business. And once they see they can make some money, they will open it up. And
he was also he was railing against taking the music out of the schools, which basically says, indirectly, music is no longer a profession. It's the musician's gift to society. So you can pay to play, or you can play for the door. But that whole idea of a musician as a profession is gone. And that, to me, and I agree with you. I think that there already is a cyclical nature in music, and it will come back around. But in what way, I don't know, because there really is, when you think about it, how elastic it was. Graham was a music lover all around. They had San Francisco records with Rubinson, but then you guys wound up on Warner Brothers. You were getting regional radio play in the Bay Area. You probably were getting regional radio play in places in the country you didn't even know about. It was a magical time.
No, Naked Lunch.
Yeah.
And just to put a stamp on what you're saying,
yeah.
Naked Lunch. See, I'm always looking for favor. How can I favor means when I'm in business, it's that low-lying fruit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, dig. Yeah.
I'm not planting the seed, growing the tree, watering, running 5 miles for water, coming back. So what I tell members of my band that are playing in 3-4 other bands doing the same thing, they don't make much money. I said this: listen, times have changed. You need to get tight with an original group, or if you don't mind playing cover music, that's not me. I've made more money in business. I'd rather go put a few deals together than play Suavecito for the 1,000th time in my life. But I told him, I said, now you got to get it exposure. That's all radio, internet, and everything is. Now you go out and to do that, you got to get people behind you that believe in you. It's just like building a business. I'm about to go to one of the crowdfunding things because I need $15,000 to do my new album. But I've got a track record. I've got an infrastructure that I've been put in and all this stuff. I've got radio, and I did all that stuff myself. But I tell them, put the main thrust of your effort into something that's going to go somewhere. Then you can break off. Here's another pet peeve. Don't tell me Mike Sharif wasn't important to Santana or I wasn't important to Malo, because we were the rock of the Latin rock that happened to have, we also felt the Latin feel. So by playing Latin rock, you expanded your marketplace to Middle America and all over the world. You know what I mean? It's not just people of color, although, hey, one of my songs it's Afro-Cuban and Montuna, I get that. I love playing that. But if I only put out music like that, now my market is small, and guess what? I'm competing with the guys that's all they do for a living is write that kind of music. So that's what I think, and Greg is right. But I think you just approach it from the point of view that if you're gonna make money, it ain't going to no club. It's gonna be when you get a presence. Because Naked Lunch had, I think his name was Gary Schaefer from KFRC. Man, you're taking me back. KFRC, and he would mention us. He would say, "Man, Naked Lunch isn't some sandwich you're gonna eat." I mean, you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
And boy, those guys played here and they played there, and you had an advocate.
Well, that's
so
yeah, that's yeah. Did you could you talk about? You keep referring to the older guys, but a guy that's always been sort of a spiritual guide for me is Hadley Caliman, and I wanted you to talk about when Hadley came. Was Hadley just a studio cat with you guys, or did he wind up playing live with you too?
After the band broke up, the Warner Brother withdrew all their support. They brought in, Leo, then Raul, and Leo knows this. Leo was one of the 7 that said, unless we all go back, none of us go back. And he was the first to go back and leave the rest of us. So one by one, they started going back, but they wanted to get rid of Abel Zarate at that point and me. So the Naked Lunch connection was now gone. And although I forget the name of the drummer back then, because I didn't get to be really proficient in my playing until, I think it really took off when I got hurt 15 years ago. For 4 years, that's all I did was study again and go, wow, man, I actually can improve. But they brought in better players, but they became a glorified kind of Latin jazz salsa band. And they went from playing in front of tens of thousands to, Warner Brothers just took away their budget. So Hadley came in after that. I think he actually did play live because Richard Kermode was still playing with the band at that point, I think. And but I wasn't a part of the.
That was the other thing is like, did you did you have a chance to play? You talked about Marcus and Pantoa, but did you have any jazz gigs in and around the Bay Area even before you got in with Naked?
No.
Yeah.
I wasn't a jazz player. I basically could play big band back in those days. And Richard, one day when we were before the band broke up, the big right before the second album, it was really sad because, man, we had some great songs ready to go, and I think the only 2 that made it was Latin Boogaloo and one other one that we were writing together. But Richard, one night in Miami, after a gig, he took me and we went up and he gave me a cowbell and he put on some Flora Prime and he just said, hey, start playing these cowbell riffs, because I used to get lost, man, when they would do that. And just one day it clicked. So that kind of opened up my jazz thing, which led me to Naked Lunch, which led me to George Marsh, which led me. Frank Martin and I are still friends. He played with Michael Walden, and he plays with Abel Boreal in a group in Alex Acuna. I sent him a thing of me doing a funk 7/8 with a 5/4 mix on it, and I said after all these years I could finally move around in these grooves. I said you wrecked me for life back when we were kids, and he said, well, here, let me teach you something else and I'll wreck the rest of your career. So it's pretty funny.
Did you go to see cats like Elvin Jones and what was when at the Jazz Workshop, or Jerry Granelli, the Haight Street Flats? I mean, there was just so much incredible melodic improvisation going on. Even when did you get a chance to actually see those cats doing and expanding? Because vocabulary in music only gets expanded by the rhythm sections. So I'm curious about the exposure you had, whether you played the genre or not is irrelevant.
Well, I would listen. No, I didn't play, and after the Naked Lunch, and then we put a band together called Visions, and that band was way ahead of its time.
Now, who was in that band?
Again, it was called Visions. We had Dave Dunaway, Frank Martin, Rich Healy out of San Francisco. So, man, we were just practicing. But we would listen, and anytime an album would come out. Then when that band, the oil embargo hit, and all our offers went off the table, it was time to start playing in clubs. And once I started doing that, that kind of killed it for a long time. And then I got hurt my neck and back in an auto accident and quit playing for 8 years, and then started playing again. And then this is like in my mid-30s, and then got hurt again in the early 40s, and it was a crippling disease. That's when I started studying and practicing, because I couldn't work, and I just sit there. Now they have instructional. This is 2096, 97. Now they have instructional DVDs to where you could put it on and you could take it at 1/4 the speed. And anytime a drummer says, just like if I'm studying a teacher for the Bible, hey, it took me 20 years to learn this, I'm always like, man, show me the roadmap. And I just take time. Hey, it took me almost 3 years to incorporate this thing I learned from John Blackwell, which is, to keep it simple, it's tom, bass, tom, bass, tom, bass, bass, tom, bass, tom, bass, tom, bass, bass, with a rotation from the right hand to the left hand, but that's in 7. And then I put a 5/4. Well, it took me 3 years to perfect that to where I could put it into my regular funk beat, right? So I just started becoming a student of music again about 12 years ago. 14. And, man, I go, gosh, this is great. Even as I'm getting older, I'm getting better. That's not supposed to happen. So I missed out on all those guys, but I listened intensely, man. I still listen to Lionel Hampton. I still listen to Jack Sperling. I still listen to Elvin Jones and all the great drummers. Some I like better than others. Buddy Rich, to me, he's the fastest man, perfect technique. But what I liked about him is that he would play syncopated stuff, which would keep my interest more than just a wall of notes. A lot of drummers today, it's just notes, and like Marcus would say, you can go, sound like you're going off a table or your tires got a flat, and break that wall of notes up. So, yeah, and hey, if you got some drummers, send them my way, man. I'm always willing to learn. And Dennis Chambers is another one.
Well, did just for the record, I mean, did Naked Lunch, did that album? Did you get acetate pressings of that album? Did it ever get released, or it just came out on a bootleg CD, or did it actually become an album?
Yes, I've actually got an LP here.
You have a copy of that?
I have a copy of it.
Oh my God! So what label was it on?
Hang on.
Yeah. Talking to Rich.
Rich Spremich.
Talking to Rich Spremich here, having a ball here. I mean, the guy is still cooking the groove with original tunes and a big band and playing Latin clave with soul and funk overtones and rock and jazz, but the rudiments and the lineage traces way back to the mid '60s. And in this band Naked Lunch, did you? The label's almost irrelevant. You do have a copy of it, though.
Well, it's called World and Sound. Yeah, I kept one that I didn't bust open, and I have another one, and it's in fact Roller Bear, who is Charles Fletcher, bass and drummer. He's on the cover, and it's on World in Sound out of Schwitzingen, Germany.
And okay, so this was you actually have an LP. The LP was printed at the time that it came out, or was it released at the same time the CD came out?
It was released the same time the CD came out.
Okay, so they got a hold of the masters and they released it.
Right.
Wow.
I don't know where they came from, but
yeah, I'm looking at
that was from our live recording. That was from the date that I told you that the Warner Brothers executives were in the audience. When you hear all that live music, that's right off there.
That is absolutely remarkable. Did you, Azteca? Did you guys play double? Were you still in Malo at that time, or I see Tom Harrell?
Yeah, Tom Harrell came through Malo, and Mike Eaton was the trombone player. Tom Poole was the trumpet player. Richard Kermode, George, Abel, Pablo, Rich Bean. Yeah, I think we had I remember who the conga player was. And then Rich Bean left. Right as the single was climbing, Warner Brothers wasn't really happy about it. But at least he was a part of the original four. So he left with actually an equity stake. The rest of us, not so much. But, yeah, so it was fun time. And I remember Azteca, we used to play with them when we were with Visions. And that Mel guy you're talking about.
Mel Martin.
Those are all the guys Yeah, I think that those guys, a group of those guys with Tom Poole went to the College of San Mateo Music, and then Frank Martin and Dave Dunaway were at the school, I forget what his name, that was over in Hayward somewhere.
Wow.
And then you had me, who was self-taught, and that's why my brother was listening to his practice, and he said, hey, man, you better start practicing because those guys are so good, they're probably going to get to a point to where they'll, how brothers are, kick you out of your own band. So,
just before we wrap up set one here, Richard, I just was hoping you could talk a little bit about your concept of love and how you bring love to the world.
Well, my concept is a biblical concept, and when all else fades away, when I'm on Facebook and I see people who follow the same teacher, because that's all, when you put a name, Buddha, Christian, it means follow the teachings. And it's all supposed to be led by love. And I'm just learning this at this point in my life, that the love, Jesus said, you'll know my people by their love. So I challenge myself to go, are you being loving? Are you being kind? Are you not reacting? And I'm getting to a point now, man, where that's really happening. Of course, this is later in life. I didn't learn it, and I think it takes time. But my love comes out through my playing. My love comes out through my music. My love comes out through my children and the way I honor my wife. I take it very seriously, the vows that I have, and also my responsibility over my girls to lead and guide them in love, and then to understand that like I told them, you all are young women now. I wrote "Don't You Cry, My Baby Girl" for my younger two daughters, and I remember they're just starting to date, and there's hawks out there, and my girls are pretty and beautiful, and daddy's girls. And, both of them, these guys came swooping in with the suave stuff and then swooped right out. And I said, you know what? You got to find somebody who loves and cherishes you the way your dad does. And Dad, we're never going to find anybody that feels that way the way you do. Then I thought, well, this is the teaching. So I went and I wrote, "Don't you cry, my baby girl. Let me dry your tears. Put your arms around me. It's me drawing you near. It's not a good thing to keep looking back. So lift up your eyes now and see who's walking by." And it's got a suave, like, don't, those grooves that I like. And I want to walk that walk and talk that talk, because unless we love each other, brother, I don't care what it is, we're not going to listen to what the other person says. I believe, like I told my girls, I'm going to tell you the wisdom I had. You guys don't mess up anything like I did at your age. You're not into drugs. I'm 99.9% sure, etc. I said, so I'm not going to be condemning. I'm just going to pray to God, help you get on the right path, and you'll feel his love coming through me in a peace. Because let me tell you, what I'm doing in radio, next time we talk, or let talk to you over the phone or something, because I have ideas about how to do this stuff.
Yeah,
is that is so important. 1 second of favor is worth a lifetime of labor. So when I'm screaming, I've been told, I'll get a little deep on you here. Well, it's not deep. I write Latin rock music that's been played all over the world. I'm getting pretty good at it. This is going to be my fourth attempt. I released 2 albums, shelved one. The last one did real well on temporal radio and going around the world into different markets. So I'm looking for that breakthrough too, so I can pioneer and bring others besides me, creative people, Because my call is bring all your creative. Let the Creator create through you. As long as you're walking your walk and talking your talk. But then I get on Facebook, well, you didn't have that much of a contribution to Malo. I was there, and I'm going, never met you, but God bless you. Who cares? But then it comes out, well, you're not Mexican enough to write music. I said, what? Write what music? I said, I'm just a musician that loves all styles. No. So you know what the lady said, contacts me. She says, I said, well, I'm an eighth Spanish. My mother's a quarter. My grandfather is from Spain. I said, what does that have to do with writing music? Okay, you got some Latin in you, but you're not brown enough. Then I got on the other side. You know, someone just contacted me telling me that song, Don't You Cry, Baby Girl. I have brown brothers and black brothers and white, you know, whoever can sing the song the best, I put them on it. They said, well, don't exploit these people. And I said, man, when did we get to this? And you know what? They wouldn't listen. So I finally decided, I'm praying, you know, I felt God telling me, you know what? Just say, hey, I love you, and walk away, because no amount of you trying to justify yourself or screaming or doing anything. He said, once the voice goes up, you're not going to listen to them. They're not going to listen to you. And as far as it has to do with you, just try to walk in love. And you know, I don't know what his spirituality was, Richard Kermode, but he was a man who walked in love. And you could hear it in his piano. That guy was just, my wife is a loving person. I'm trying to be more, and I will, like her. So that's what it is to me. That's what it is to me.
I mean, and bless you, brother, because I have two young daughters, and the world is changing, and these are the times that we're living in. But I will say that at 12 and 5, especially my 12-year-old, she's got a good head on her shoulders. But yeah, I mean, it's you have 6. I don't know how you're doing it, but Richard Spremich, it was such a great honor to talk to you, and we will do this again. And I would love to be part of your team, man, because my tentacles are pretty far out on new media. I'm not syndicated. I don't think I really would want to be syndicated. I've been doing this for 6 years. I've done over 1,000 primary source interviews, and you might have gotten a little bit deep on me, but my show it's a deep hang. So we got a lot of good stuff today, and we'll do more, man. Much love to you, brother.
Yeah, and if I could I give out my website?
Oh, come on, go ahead.
Yeah, it's www.breathspiritlife.com. And music with a message, no condemnation, but instrumental music that is just, I think, some of the best out there. And also, I'll leave you with this, brother, is that let's build an army. I truly believe I've been called at this point in my life to start bridging stuff to bypass Nashville. And they don't like it, to bypass. Why? Because they're always saying no one wants to hear that kind of music anymore, except when it makes it directly to the people. So I believe you too, man, and I'm going to text you my email. If you could text me yours, and I'll send you over some stuff, and let's chat again. Okay?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it takes an army of creative people, but it doesn't mean you don't need thousands of people. You just need creative people who are outside the lines of this corporate musical structure. So I'm 100% on board, man. We'll just continue to work through this and just keep building on something that the creator, because that's at 39. I'm on a sacred journey, and and you know that. So and you're going to see it in full force today when some of these stories get transcribed and start going up on new media and start having an impact on people like Garibaldi and George Marsh, who I'm connected to. It's connecting humanity in the digital age. So whatever I can do to be part of that team, you let me know.
Amen. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Bless you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Later. Bye-bye. Richard Spremich, phenomenal human being, amazing drummer, It doesn't matter how much Mexican Latin blood he has. He could play the clave beat with the best of them, and a better human being. And we'll be back tomorrow with Cass Clayton and Dan Healy on Thursday. Until then, this is the Jake Feinberg Show. Peace.
Suavecito,